All right, we'll start officially now. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here to our what is becoming our annual Speak Out event, where students come together to talk with as large of an audience as we can muster at this late time in the semester about important things, about important pressing issues in our community. That is of importance to us all. So welcome to all of you. My name is Mike McGuire, and today we're here with students from Com 102, which is a research writing class. Hey, Mandy. All right. And we've got a pretty nice group here today. We've got a lot of visitors, a nice audience, and occupying mostly the back row. Thank you for coming out today. Appreciate that. My students are thrilled, I'm sure, to have an audience today. But I remind them, even if the audience feels cozy, it's much larger than the one that's in this room right now at this particular moment in time, because this is being video recorded. It will be archived in the library. It'll be searchable, by future students who are doing research on similar issues that our speakers are talking about today. So there certainly is an audience beyond this moment in time. Also, it will be made available on the library's YouTube site. And you know what happens when things go out on YouTube. They're out there forever. So that's amazing. And I'm far more excited about this than my students, I'm sure. But I do hope that they'll appreciate this one day. Okay. This is a research writing class, Com 102. And this semester, students have been researching social issues that are important and pressing in our communities. And the research method that we undertook was one that wasn't just about hunkering down in the library, right? That was certainly part of it, but it also was a process that forced us all out of our comfort zones and into the community and into the field, so to speak, to conduct some field research. This field research took the form of what I call critical service learning. Critical service learning is a combination of both meaningful service with the community, civic skills, and an enhanced academic experience. The intersection of those three things is critical service learning. Students worked with 23 different not-for-profit community organizations this semester, all of which the organizations, they focused on issues ranging from anything from food insecurity and homelessness to animal rights to early childhood education to ecological restoration and everything in between. It was quite a range of issues, actually, that we worked on this semester. All of this research and writing and work this semester really has been focused on affecting positive change in our communities. And today, everybody in this room is a part of that change. So please listen today with an open mind and an open heart as our speakers tell us their story of self, our story of us, and most significantly, the story of right now. So without further ado, Zach, come on down.
By show of hands, who knows what poverty is? Cool. All right. All right, so hello, my name is Zach Baylog, and today I'll be talking to you guys about poverty. And basically, my goal is to get you guys to act. And I'm going to be starting off by explaining to you how poverty has affected me, how it's affected us, and what can be done to help the issue on poverty. So first off, I'd like to start off by talking to you about my story. Growing up wasn't always easy. My mom, my dad, they didn't really work. And I lived with my grandma until about the age of 7. And growing up in the north side of Chicago with parents that didn't work was very hard. They couldn't support me with food, clothes, school, and it really hit me hard. And basically, eventually, they got a job, and that was around the age of 7. That's when we moved out. My dad got a job as a tuck pointer, working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, as well as my mom, working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And eventually we moved out of my grandma's house, and it was awful there. My grandma, grandpa, they both smoked, and it wasn't a good environment for me. So we moved out, and we moved to Bridgeview, and that's where they built the home where we live in today. And I basically thought of a way to wanting to give back to the community. And when I stepped into Mr. McGuire's classroom, I was introduced to service learning. Service learning is it's sort of like community service, but it's not quite the same. You're going out and you're helping, but also you're gaining knowledge and a learning experience from it. So I choose Working Bikes, and Working Bikes is a nonprofit organization that takes used and abused bikes and ships them out to third world countries. And these bikes aren't just a frame and two wheels. These bikes help give people hope and perseverance on finding water, food, jobs, education, and it really gives them hope. So basically, doing that made me feel good, and knowing how happy it made me feel, I knew that it would also put a smile on other people's faces. So showing up to Working Bikes, I went with a friend of mine, and basically we got a whole bunch of bikes together. We prepped them all for shipping, and now they're off in a third world country where people are just enjoying them. And what's really touched me most is that these bikes are just, it's a phenomenal way for people to just use and help them scavenge for like a new life, and it's great. And basically, my question for you guys is, you know, we've all felt hunger, we've all felt that pain in our stomach, that achy feeling that when we haven't eaten for days, and millions upon millions of children are just struggling and they're hungry, and I want to get you guys to, you know, one day go out and, you know, find some type of organization that you guys can get yourself involved in. Like, there's food banks, there's clothes drives, you know, you can go help out and volunteer at a homeless shelter. And, you know, just how would you feel if you were homeless, you had nothing to eat, no clothes, no shelter, and wouldn't you want someone to go out there and help you too? So, thank you.
Okay, so my name is Alyssa, and basically I've loved animals like my whole life, and like they're the most loyal, like loving friends you could ever imagine to have. And my family and I have actually saved the lives of 5 different animals. We've adopted 3 dogs and 2 cats from animal shelters. So I decided that I would go help out with the animals at the Animal Welfare League. And due to the love of animals that I have, and when I first stepped in the Animal Welfare League, it was kind of sad because the first thing you notice is all the dogs barking because they're all locked up in a cage and, you know, not really getting the attention that they deserve. And so the first thing that they told me to do when I came to help is to clean out the cage and, like, spend time with the animals and feed them and everything. And I noticed after spending just 5 minutes with one animal, they were instantly happier because they weren't feeling neglected all the time. And so a challenge that the community is faced with is the overpopulation of animals, and sometimes that's due to the lack of owners not getting their animals spayed or neutered, which is actually really important because it could result in an unwanted pregnancy of an animal. And so when that happens, sometimes they'll try to sell the animals, and if they don't sell them, they unfortunately will try to kill them. And so that's why the Animal Welfare League and other animal shelters are open. They're open 24/7, so you could always drop off an unwanted animal there, and so we could help find a good, loving home for the animal. And so as a result of the shelters accepting the animals, it helps them. They have other different types of things you could do. You could bring them on Saturdays. They bring the animals to the pet stores, so when people go, they could like see the animals that don't go into the shelter. They can see that there's more and see a variety and help them get adopted. And but the challenge that we are faced with now is an overcrowding of the animals in the animal shelters and not enough people to help. And so what we need to do is have more people help so these animals don't feel neglected and don't get sad, because the more an animal is sad and neglected, they tend to be meaner or like afraid, and so the owners or people who are trying to adopt are afraid to play with the animals because they're afraid that they're going to get bit or something. And we need to help and make them feel loving and cared for so that they aren't scaring the other people who want to adopt them. And so we should all help and try to help these animals find a loving home.
All right. As you guys said before, you're like all aware of what poverty is, but I feel like in today's age, a lot of people like to pretend it doesn't exist because we don't see it. A lot of the times it affects third world countries, and we like to pretend it doesn't exist because we don't see it firsthand. But one of the times that I witnessed it firsthand was when I was like about 10 years old. I was visiting my grandparents in Mexico, and me and my family had just went to a restaurant to go eat, and being the bratty little kid that I was, I didn't want to eat my food because it looked funny. So when we were leaving, they took my food and for like to go leftovers, and then as we were walking out the restaurant, this little boy, he couldn't have been older than 5 or 6, and he came up to us and me and my mother, and he asked us for change, and it was a very like eye-opening experience because when you're 5 or 6, you don't see kids going up to strangers asking them for money and doing those types of things. I would have that's like unimaginable for me, and it was like a really eye-opening experience. And then when he asked my mother that, she didn't have change on her, but she had the food, so she offered it to him, and like he took it so eagerly and even started to eat it like right in front of us. And it was like I said, it was very eye-opening, and it made me realize how fortunate I was to be in the position that I am. But it also made me realize that there are many other people in different parts of the world that don't have the same opportunities as us and don't have the same basic life necessities that we need to survive. And and this affects like a significant amount of people in the world. There's people in the world that don't have access to clean water, food, medical care, and it's not just an issue that's prevalent in one area. It's a global issue that needs attention to be brought on. In fact, nearly half of the world's population, more than 3 billion people, live on less than $2.50 a day, and more than 1.3 billion people live in extreme poverty, which means they live on a mere $1.25 a day. This is an obvious cause for concern. People living like this equates to millions of people suffering and unnecessary death. For example, roughly 1.8 million children die each year as a result of diarrhea, something that can be treated so easily, but we allow it to continue and cause destruction in the world. As human beings, we should make it our moral obligation to take care for one another. Everyone deserves a basic means of life, and just because we don't see the effects it has on people, we shouldn't treat them as less. We should make it our goal to try to end poverty and try to help people out. And although people think poverty is limitless and it's too complicated to stop, it's actually been calculated that $1.25 billion a year could cut poverty relatively in half. And to give you a little bit of perspective, in the U.S., Americans spend about $116 billion annually on alcohol. So, I mean, really, So really, to put an end to poverty is our choice. We can make it happen. So I ask you today to help me give a voice to the poor and the vulnerable. By going to thelifeyoucansave.org, you can go and give a small donation, even just a couple of dollars, to some of the renowned charities that they have on the website, and it can help them. It helps with education, stop malnourishment in children, and it gives medical care. So, I mean, are you willing to make the difference today?
Hello, guys. I'm Jordan. A lot of you guys can see I'm white. Wearing an Apple Watch, so you'd probably think that I have some sort of money. But growing up, that wasn't always the case for me. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a pretty poor neighborhood. It wasn't like we were without. My mom and my father always supported us when I was growing up, but we never had the nice new clothes that that a lot of us are wearing today. Everything I owned was hand-me-downs from my brother, who was twice the size of me already by my age. So everything was always double my size. Living in the south side of Chicago, you'd figure I would have seen all kinds of crazy things. I've been exposed to a lot of things, but my parents shielded me from a lot of problems that you would figure that you would see. So it wasn't until I was about 10 years old that I finally first experienced any sort of injustice towards anybody or anything. When I was about 10, I had a best friend. His name was Connor. He's an African-American kid, and like I said, as you can see, I'm very white, so race was not an issue in my neighborhood. Everyone loved each other in my neighborhood. So Connor and I were coming back from school. We used to walk to school every day, and we normally take the same route, but one of these days we decided to detour around to a block that we've never been down. It was a pretty rich block, wasn't much farther away from where we normally stay, but it was different, so we decided to go. So as we were walking down this block, we actually saw these 4 kids playing in their front yard. All of them wearing their nice, freshly pressed Catholic school clothes. So Connor and I were like, "Oh, let's go play with them." What kid doesn't want to go play with other kids? So we're walking up to them, and then they just start looking at us. They give us one of these, we're from a different planet looks. So my first thought, I looked at Connor. I go, "Hey, I got booger in my nose or anything, or is there something wrong with me? Something happening?" He goes, "No, man, you're all good." So he asked me the same question. I told him he was all fine. So we were like, "Okay, let's go see what's going on." So we go up there, and as we got closer, the kids almost kind of just did one of these, kind of backed away from us. Not at the time, not knowing what that meant. I was like, "All right, I don't know what's going on." But so I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Jordan. This is Connor. Can we play with you guys?" Then there's one kid who I'm assuming was the oldest brother, stood up, about 12 years old, kind of just looks at me like as if he had blinders on so he couldn't see my friend Connor, and goes, "What is he doing here?" At 10 years old, I still didn't understand what that meant. So as stuff kind of progressed and it just kind of got more and more offensive to me, something seemed wrong, I told Connor, I'm like, "All right, let's go." Walking home, I asked Connor, "Hey, do you know what that was all about?" And he was telling me he was being racist. This is something that him as a 10-year-old boy has gone through in his life already, and his family experiences on a constant basis. So that was the first time I was actually introduced to any sort of injustice. So from that point on, my eyes were opened. So now as an adult, I'm seeing more and more injustices. One of the things that I've noticed, though, is that just because you're not you're not a male or female, doesn't mean you can't be treated unjust. That is why when I was given the opportunity to look more into animal welfare, that I jumped on the objective. I was reading an article, and it stated that there is a direct correlation between domestic violence and animal abuse. In fact, 87% of women that reported domestic violence reported also that their animals were being abused at home. And 75% of those incidents were in front of the presence of a child. 75% of in front of a child. That is an unstaggering. It's 3/4 of reports that you see. That is way too much. So what I did, I researched, I did everything I could to find out what I can do myself or what this country is already doing to try and prevent animal welfare or animal abuse. Prevent animal abuse. One of the things I looked into was that Illinois, granted, it is the #1 safest place for animals, which is, a big feat in its own. You figure 50 states and a couple little, like Guam's and all that. We're #1. But one of the things that we're not doing is that we still allow animal abusers to adopt or repurchase animals. There's no sort of registry or anything that stops that. So doing more research, I found out that Tennessee itself has just announced its first launch of this. It is starting an animal abuse registry. Very similar to the sex offenders registry. Public information, anyone can look into it. Then everyone knows who has abused an animal. This way it'll prevent animal abuse, and it'll slow down the idea. The one major thing that Illinois does do, though, is that if you are caught abusing an animal, your first offense is a Class 4 felony. It's up to 1 to 3 years in possible jail time with up to a $25,000 fine. Your next offense is a Class 3 felony, 2 to 5 years in possible prison time and still a $25,000 fine. That's a good start, in my opinion, but I think we need to adopt an idea like the Tennessee registry, because if you figure that's going to, if everyone has access to that, you know what kind of people are living in your neighborhood. You know what kind of people are adopting animals. You know who should and shouldn't have animals. So what I've already been doing myself, I've already written my congressman once already. My congressman himself is Bobby Rush. And if anyone else is interested, or I highly suggest that everyone writes their congressman if this is a big issue for you. If you go to www.commoncause.org and you type in your address, you can actually find out who your representatives are in your area. So it's all up to you now. If I family and animals, those are my two favorite things. And I'm not going to stop until animals have the rights, that every human does. Thank you.
All right, hello. My name is Elver. Growing up as a kid, I was raised like the Polish way. Both my parents came from Poland. They came to the U.S. imagining a better world, a better living for the family that they were making. As a kid, they raised me to go more outside, playing with toys, riding bikes, going for walks, enjoying nature, and not really playing video games or TV or anything else like that. So naturally, I just grew a strong relationship with bikes. I just love going on them, love going on adventures, seeing new places around, enjoying the thrill. And then after a while, my bikes would start breaking. So I'd do some research either online or ask some friends or some other people that had some previous knowledge of fixing bikes, and I would fix the bikes myself. After some time, I became known as a little kid that would fix everyone's bike in the whole neighborhood. It was a little funny, like a little 12-year-old, 13-year-old fixing everyone's bikes. So later on, during end of junior year and high school year, I became friends with 4 to 5 people that had a very similar and story to mine and a strong relationship with bikes. So after some time, we started hanging out after school, fixing our own bikes, making them better, quicker, faster, however you want to say it. And then going out to places. We'd go to forest preserves, horse trails, private properties, and trespass. And honestly, we did up to 30 miles each day just going on bikes, which is a lot for someone that's 15, 16 years old. And then so in this class for McGuire, we were called to action for our service learning. So I immediately jumped on the Working Bikes organization. So I really wanted to find out what this was all about. What they do is they take in a lot of donated bikes and all the abandoned bikes around the whole city of Chicago. They fix up the bikes, they restore them, and they sell them for a lower price at their organization. And I think it's Little Village. And I'm not really sure, but most of them, they actually transport them to third world and developing countries and give a lot of other people the opportunity to have the ability to transport something important. Because a lot of people, they don't have either the money or the sources to call something like an Uber, like nowadays people do, or a taxi, or get their own car. And so bicycles mean a lot to other people that don't really have much in their life and allow them to get to water, like my friend Zach over there had stated, to the hospital, to work, to get money, to pay for their things, to get food, and to survive. And so I thought it was a really nice organization. I joined in with the Working Bikes. I gave them some of my time, and there's many things you could do with the Working Bikes organization. You could just donate your own bike that you don't use. You could donate your own time. You could donate money. There's a lot of other options you can do. But one thing I have to say is they do a really big job, and they do a cool job because it's a really chill organization, but they help out a lot of people, almost 500,000 people that they have donated bikes to, and they give a lot of other people in developing world and third world countries a chance to do something with their lives. Thank you.
Okay, so my name's Lucy, and when I was in the 4th grade, my mother told me something that changed my views on the guy that lives at the North Pole and eats all the cookies and milk you leave out for him. And she changed my views on one other thing, too. It was her. She told me that Santa Claus did not exist, and I was completely devastated, obviously, as anyone would be. And she told me another story that kind of just changed my entire thoughts on that. She told me that one Christmas morning, her and her 5 siblings woke up to no presents under their small Christmas tree. And she was very confused, and she just was sad because obviously Santa didn't leave her presents. Like, was she a bad kid? What did she do? So my grandparents sat her and her 5 siblings down and said that Santa Claus did not exist, and they just didn't have enough money to buy all 6 of their children Christmas presents. And I was completely devastated. I didn't know that my mother grew up poor, that my grandparents struggled daily to put food on the table. I just thought she lived a normal childhood. But she made sure that my brother and I never had to grow up like she did. So throughout my entire life, I've done a ton of volunteering due to the social responsibility I feel with my mother's story. For Professor McGuire's class, I volunteered at Beds Plus. And I thought I would just go there, volunteer. But service learning was a new thing. So I was eager to see what it was. And I volunteered at Beds Plus, and it's a homeless shelter at Pilgrim Faith Church in Oak Lawn, Illinois. And at my experience there, I saw the good and the bad of the homeless community. There was a child named Christina at the shelter. She seemed to be about 12 or 13. And one day a fellow volunteer asked her mother what the both of them would like for lunch the next day. And Christina's mother said that, what she would like for lunch. And then she said that Christina would get a lunch tomorrow at school. And that hit me. Christina had to go to school the next day while spending the previous night in a homeless shelter. I could not imagine how Christina's mother felt. She would wonder, does my child get made fun of at school? How is her social life? Like, imagine just not knowing where you guys would sleep that night. You might spend it under a bridge or, luckily, in a homeless shelter. And then you would have to wake up the next morning and just make your child look presentable enough to get to school the next day. Most of the people at the Beds Plus homeless shelter are trying to get their life back on track. They're trying to get out of the homeless community, but just have nowhere to start. They need a push in the right direction. Now I ask all of you to make a difference. I had an eye-opening experience at Beds Plus, and hopefully you guys might too. If you're in need of any homeless shelters like Christina and her family are, I highly recommend that you go to Beds Plus at Pilgrim Faith Church at Oak Lawn, Illinois, on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. Or if you want to help people out like Christina, contact the Beds Plus organization at volunteer@beds-plus.org. And, thousands of people need your help. You need to make a difference. We need to make a difference. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I don't really like talking much about my past. It's, sorry. I'm sorry. All right, like I said, I don't really like talking about my past. It kind of brings me down a little. But for the sake of the speech, let's talk about it. Well, for starters, my name is Luis Munoz. I'm that quiet kid. You guys remember me in the beginning of the year? didn't really talk much. Well, I have a backstory, you know. I grew up in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago, and just thinking about it kind of brings me down. I'm sorry. Both my parents weren't really there because they both needed to work a full-time job just to pay the rent. I lived in a 3-story house, so we only lived on the first floor, so we're renting for that, so that was kind of hard for us to live. And the neighborhood itself is like, if you go there, it's the atmosphere. You feel like you need to keep your guard up. And as a kid, I had to do that, and it was kind of, scary at that time. And speaking of scary, if you go around my neighborhood, there's a school called Sword Academy. And by the looks of it, it looks like a prison. I know I'm smiling, but I never thought about it until I went back. I'm like, oh my God, I went to this school? I don't want to curse, though. I'm trying to keep it cool. Anyways, it was a hard time for me. I mean, I remember as a kid going to school, I would see these kids having these mechanical pencils, you remember those crayons where like twist them and they come out? I'm like, to me, I was like, oh my God, this is the future. I want one. And I tell my parents, can you buy me these? My parents were like, it's too expensive. Or mechanical pencils. Man, I always wanted those, but as a kid, it was kind of hard for me to get those because my parents, both working full-time jobs, never really there for me. I mean, they were there because, they bought me clothes, they got me all the things I needed to succeed. But at one time in my life, I was thinking if I should join a gang, to be honest. I was thinking that, is this my solution? Because where I live, it was like, the only thing, to survive is actually joining a gang. Because I remember every night it kind of breaks me down. I would hear gunshots, and I remember one of those gunshots hit one of my friends. He passed away. And this brings me up to kids who live under these circumstances, these low-life circumstances. During the articles I was reading, it says that kids who live in harsh lives and don't have the much opportunities as, under poverty, I guess, are joining gangs just to survive, just to steal, just to, able to sustain a life. And one thing, then I kept looking through, and there was articles that, bring me down and brings back, I'm sorry, it kind of hits me, I'm sorry. But there is a solution. And one of the solutions was one of the organizations that you showed, My Joyful Heart. But before I go on with that, I was reading the description. It kind of threw me off because I thought it was about, meeting kids and actually talking to them. It wasn't. So once I went to that location, to the building, it was a warehouse. And I was kind of disappointed because I was looking forward to, working with kids. I was like, I'm going to work with kids. I know how they felt. I know what they lived. I know what they went through. I know those harsh lives. And it wasn't. It was, think about it. A good example would be like going to Sam's Club. You guys been to Sam's Club? You know how they was all stocked up? I went in there. I'm like, where's the kids? I'm looking forward to working with them. And so put me to work. I'm like, it's my day off. I didn't really want to do that. I mean, it was a Friday. Those are my days off. I'm like, work? I want to work with kids, not, stacking up stuff. And one of the employees, I'm sorry, the owner of this organization her name is Dana. One of the employees, her name is Sarah. After I was done with my work, she went up to me. She's like, Luis, you do realize this makes a difference. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you doing this little things makes a difference for kids. And I was thinking, and I never really thought of that, and it actually does. And I was going through articles, and it said that kids succeeded just for example, just as simple as utensils, the things you have right now, pencils, pens, erasers, actually gave them hope. And I would like to give an example of what gave me hope. Excuse me? As a kid, I always wanted to play soccer. I wasn't able to. But once I had opportunities with my uncle, he gave me the chance to play with the team. So I played for free. I got all the stuff. But I remember it was hard for me to get, gloves. I'm a goalie. So I went to a thrift store, and I was like, they have the cheap stuff. So I bought some cheap latex, and I know throughout the year I was playing with these gloves, and boy, were these ruined. I mean, they were bad. And here are the gloves I wore as a kid for 3 years. Look at them. They're all beat up. I was a goalie, and these aren't even goalie gloves. I just bought $5 gloves that would help me. And I remember we made it to the finals. I was wearing these beat up gloves. And one of the guys went up to me, a stranger. He was like, "Hey, it looks like you need new gloves." And I looked down. I was like, "Yeah, but I don't have the money, you know." And he literally goes, pulls off his backpack and gives me new gloves, brand new gloves. He's like, "Here you go, kid." And that brought me hope, you know. That brought me, you know, I literally looked at the guy and I wanted to cry because it showed me that there are people that care. There are people that want you to move forward. And that's what I want you guys to do. I mean, I might be a quiet kid, but I have a big heart, and I know you guys too. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Olaf. I personally come from a low-income family from the south side of Chicago, too, in Pilsen, with 2 Hispanic parents and a sister. They both worked like full-time jobs. It was hard for them to like even be around us. My dad worked at construction. My mom worked in a factory. That honestly, though, caused a lot of problems for my parents and for like my education. Reason being because like they both worked so much that it was hard for them to take care of me, or they had to struggle like on finding ways who was going to pick up my sister at school or who was going to pick me up at school. I even missed like a couple of days of school. I remember because like there was like for sure nobody was going to pick us up, so they're like, just go to your aunt's house. And my aunt lived in Burbank, over here, like nicer neighborhood, so it was like a 45-minute drive. I really couldn't even try to make it to school or come back, but I know it was hard times, so like whatever for my parents. It was just like really hard for them to find like different shift jobs because as like they're Hispanic, they came from like no papers, came from Mexico to help us come like get a better life for me. It was just really hard for them just to be like, oh, I want this job because they didn't have any resources. My mom barely spoke English. My dad was like somewhat learning a little bit more, but it was whatever. But one day, thanks to God, we found a place called El Valor. It's located in Pilsen on 19 and Damon. It's like an after-school program, but people thought of it like as a daycare because it's like you just leave your kids there, blah, blah. But I seen it as like a daycare. I seen it like a program that would help us. Like it would feed us. It would pick us up from school. Then they had a game room for like after everything was done, we could go there and play games with other kids. Especially like it would help us with our homework. So like that honestly gave me like good because I was always slacking on my homework because my parents were never there. So like nobody pushed me to like do my homework. So I would just go to class without my homework. But they helped me so much that I'm honestly so grateful that they did. They taught me new things. They showed me like experiences that I wouldn't have experienced as a kid. I remember they took us to like the Sox game. Like they save up money, take us to the Sox game, and it was like my first time, and I was like so excited, and it was just good experiences. I remember they also had like little kids. They would like teach them stuff for when they had to actually go to school. This is why this semester I joined the Carl Robertson Center. It's a center like basically for all ages, newborn to 18. They mostly focus on 1 through 4 year olds though. I joined it because it reminded me of the struggles that I had to go through. And like I know those struggles the families are going through right now, like because they're in that program. It's like El Valor is basically like the Carl Robertson Center. It just like made me see them. Like I seen myself in those little kids' shoes. Like I was there when, and someone was like me helping you guys out. So I just really wanted to give it all I had. It's such an amazing place. Working with the kids showed me a lot. They help the little kids get start school. They teach them their ABCs, shapes, colors, even how time management works. And for kids to know how time management works, I think it's pretty good. They also offer different things because they are combined with organizations around the area. They try to help the kids and parents as much as possible. They have even home-based programs, child development programs from birth to 5 years old, have extensive family support and social services, and parent education activity and such more. They just have one goal, and it's to enrich the families and the kids, to like empower them to have a successful life. You just have to think about it. Some of us just come from wealthier families than others. Some people just need a little extra push to succeed in life. The Carl Robertson Center does get grants and donations, but they do not get a lot, honestly. And the way they do it, they really don't charge the parents anything. They charge them like $20 a week. That's really nothing, just to like be able to be there. But they just have sometimes trouble because they are so low on staff because they don't have enough money. So, or to buy like new things. I remember they had to make like their own little Play-Doh and stuff like that, or their Play-Doh was like a week old. And by the time it was Friday when I went, it was already dry, and you really couldn't even make anything off of it. It was just like, what is this? Like, no, you can't even play with this. So I was just like, okay. But and then the next time I went, I took them Play-Doh, and like it was, you could tell the difference between the two Play-Dohs they had, and it was just like, and they made their own toys. It was kind of cool. Like they taught them how to make stuff. So like little kids were like, oh, I made this, and I was like, holy crap, like I can't even make that, or something. But this is why it's like time for us, like me and you and everyone else, to take charge and help all these kids to have a better life. By you could take charge by just like volunteering, like go with the kids, play with them, help the teachers, like because it's low on staff, so just help the teachers make everything go on more smoothly. Like imagine 30 little kids or like 20 little kids just running around and there's just one person there. It's like really hard. Like you try to stop one, the other one's over there already. It's like they have two, but I honestly don't think two is enough, especially for that many little kids. And for them all to pay attention, like, and they still have to be like potty trained. So like some of them are going to the bathroom, and then the other one's over here crying. So you're just like, where do they go? Like they have trouble with that. So like if you have you could have time to go ahead. Or I mean, if I know some of you are really busy with school, they have work, stuff like that. You could just donate a couple change, dollars, anything that could help raise for new things, toys, or for them to expand, because right now they only have a capacity of 700 kids, but there's like way more than 700 kids out there trying to even get into that program or different programs. Like I remember I was really lucky to even get to El Valor, but at that time it was just, they had so many kids too and so many little staff, but as a little kid I didn't think of it like that. I was just like, oh, like I'm happy to even be here. But yeah, so if you have any money or you want to donate time, but there's 3 different locations at this point around the area, maybe some closer to you, but once to go check it out, but once maybe once, but I know that you always want to keep going, because of those smiles of little kids and those laughs that make you feel will change your view about everything, just like they did to me. So thank you.
Everybody in the 313. All right, right on here. All right, my name's Tyler. The nature of my service learning was English as a second language, and through that I want to talk to you a little more in depth and break that down. To me, growing up, I experienced a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things, but the thing about that is everybody can see things, but not a lot of people can experience it. And to me, an experience is something that you have to be really immersed on, and you become a part of almost. And not too long ago, about a year ago, I was on my way to a party with a bunch of friends of mine, and my friend, we'll call her Becky. We were on our way, and we got pulled over, and I had one friend of mine who was a person of color. And immediately the pullover was just a simple seatbelt situation. We had little issues, and suddenly that situation changed when my friend Jordan was asked to leave the car. And at first I thought nothing of it because I didn't want to get in trouble myself. And then I noticed that this was clearly, a product of stereotypical discrimination. Growing up, I've had a lot of blue blood police family members, so I understand that they do this kind of thing. The demeanor of the whole search changed, and they were kind of pressuring us to not say anything. The presiding officers were kind of leaning over us and making us feel uncomfortable with the situation. And as they escorted Jordan away to the back of the police car, out of sight, they kind of left us to, sit there, and they were questioning us, trying to make us scared that they may arrest us. And that's when I popped up and said, this is very stereotypical policing for you guys to take away the, one African-American kid. And at that point, he told me to kind of shut up and don't say anything. And, it dawned on me, like, we have that voice to say something. And there's always going to be factors that kind of suppress that. And that's where something called courage comes in. And I wear the shirt posthumously. We're all aware of the show Courage. It's a cowardly dog who, in contrast to that, is actually quite brave, but he can't quite speak any kind of language. And he uses a lot of gesturing and to get his words out. And in the end, he helps the protagonist in his everyday situations. But the point is, he doesn't have the language set to communicate. But he's still out there able to be, giving pragmatic solutions and save the day. And much like foreigners and immigrants that come to this country to learn English as a second language, we should have those avenues. We should have that courage and that pathway to help them feel comfortable. And in my nature of my service learning, the English as a second language program provided just that. I felt it was a great way that made foreigners feel comfortable. They voluntarily could walk in without having scheduled classes or issues of having payment, which could be a problem being a foreigner in a new land. You need your money. They can come in and do what they need to do, which is learn the language, simple conversation. If they need to know where the bathroom is, if they need to know, if they need something to eat, they're able to do that. in my time when I was researching this, I came across articles that describe English as a second language program. The person who runs it is a dean here. His name is Michael Morshin. He's done a lot of independent work abroad. He's been to the Democratic Congo, Tanzania. He's been all over the country and world teaching English as a second language. And he's here doing it on his own time, all out of his own pocket, altruism, trying to teach people the second language. Because when foreigners are here, contrary to the populist belief that we have in this country, kind of a xenophobic ideology, contrary to that, these people are coming here for better lives. They're paying tax dollars, and they're creating a better economy for us and us as a whole. What we can do in the very least in situations, if we have the privilege, because I'm about as white as the board behind me, I have the privilege of having a platform. For those of us that have that, we should take that platform and absolutely use that. Be the voice for those that can't. And just generally, there should be a sense of courage and compassion and understanding with people, especially immigrants. The English as a Second Language program occurs every weekend here at Moraine, free. It's up in the B building. You can go there and just sit down and you could hear interesting things, stories from people from all over the Myanmar Republic, Burma. It's not just people coming out of Mexico. It's not just people coming out of the Middle Eastern countries. They're foreigners all over, and they're diverse, and they're really what makes this country great. So I say in terms of foreigners and making a change, if you want freedom to ring, it sounds like a bunch of foreign voices that are able to communicate bilingually. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Nick. I would like to point out one of the pressing issues in today's society, especially the younger audience, which is fitting in. I myself had a very hard time fitting in. I had many friends during kindergarten and first grade, but after that, it all kind of fizzled out. I didn't have anything from about second grade to all the way past junior high to about the beginning of high school, in which I started playing football, and football really helped me, gain friends and everything. And I got my friends and my girlfriend, and I thought, damn, that's awesome for me. But other people out there have a much harder time fitting in, especially with the language barrier in the United States. It's very hard for people, especially people who can't speak the language, to be successful if they can't get a job here, a well-paying job here. And imagine just being an outsider of a whole country. If you went to a different country, like France, could you speak French? Many of you probably can't, just banking on that. But it's a major struggle here, and I donated my time in helping to the same that Tyler did, to the ESL class. And the ESL class was structured very differently from any other class. Every student there was contributing willingly, and they liked to because they always wanted to get better at their own language. And, there were people there who've only been in America for 3 months and came here with little to no English intelligence or comprehension, but when I heard them speak, they spoke very articulately, and it impressed me very much. So, the class runs just upstairs at B284 on Saturdays at 10 a.m. and Sundays at 12. But even if you can't, and I know some people can't have the time to donate to an organization like that, just whenever you are conversing with a limited English speaker, just give them a chance. Just be there, just be patient, and try to help them. Because imagine anytime if you weren't fitting in with somebody, if just one person was on your side. Just one person would listen to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dean, and I remember the first time I was able to really intensely feel compassion for a hurt animal. I was 6 years old, and my mom and dad were pulling into the driveway of my childhood home. Off to the left of the driveway, by the trash cans, was a black mass of feathers hobbling around. It was a crow. The crow it had a broken leg, and it couldn't fly. So my aunt, hearing my parents pull up, let me out the front door to greet my parents. Seeing and hearing the commotion about the crow, I was very concerned. I wanted the crow to be okay. So my dad caught the crow, brought it into our laundry room, and we started to care for it. I fed it crackers. It ate. We gave it water. It drank. So we thought the crow was going to be okay. We had a lot of hope for the crow. But there was still the issue of it not being able to walk or fly, which are normal crow things. So my mom started calling around to different vets in the area. And eventually, the last one that she called ended up being a vet that took in rescue birds as well as emergency visits, like right away. So my parents took him in, and the vet took one look at the crow and was able to say, we're going to have to put this crow to sleep. The crow's foot was nearly broken off, almost completely snapped off. And he was 100% sure that there was no recovery for the crow. Safe to say, my family tried their best. They said we would be willing to pay any medical bills we just wanted to keep the crow. It was a good crow. It was a nice crow. It was a very, very nice crow. The nicest crow I've ever met. But in the end, he had to be put to sleep. I was sad, of course. But in the end, I understood. A crow that can't walk or fly, it just isn't a happy crow. And a dog that's been physically and psychologically tormented and left to die isn't a happy dog. In our community, the biggest plight that animals face is dogfighting. Dogfighting scars dogs for life. Dogs lose legs, eyes, and vital organs to dogfighting. And after, they're dumped onto the street or into an animal shelter if they're lucky. Dogfighting is what needs your compassion. Hundreds of dogs are killed or hurt because of it, especially pit bulls. You can walk into any animal shelter in the area and find proof of this. Ask anyone involved. I've personally seen it in my time at the Animal Welfare League. 90%, that's just a number off the top of my head, of the shelter, the dog population is pit bulls, fighting dogs, dogs that were used as bait. And the sheer numbers of the situation are scary. I'm from Nevada, and in Nevada you can walk into the shelter and see all kinds of dogs left there for all kinds of reasons, but here in Illinois and Chicago, it's mostly dog fighting. And that's terrifying to me. It's sickening. These animals are forced to maim and kill one another for sport. But when all is said and done, not much can be done about accidents like the crow. But something definitely can be done about the victims of dogfighting. If you feel powerless, don't worry. There's plenty you personally can do. Animal shelters are the answer. You can walk out of here today, right after this presentation, and you can go volunteer at an animal shelter. No wait time. You might have to get trained first, but the time between you being here listening to me speak and you helping some animals doesn't have to be long. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Courtney Smith, and I have loved animals my entire life. My first animal was actually a bullfrog. His name was Jeremiah, and I loved him a lot. And once he passed away, I was like, Dad, I want a puppy really, really, really bad. And I would keep pestering my parents. And finally, for my 8th birthday, I got my first puppy, and his name was Luke, and he was a beagle. If you've ever had a beagle, those dogs are insane. We took him to puppy kindergarten. We took him on walks. We tried to train him as best as we can, but he was just really out of control. Those dogs are meant for the country. They are not meant to be put in a backyard in Chicago. We started worrying about what our neighbors were thinking, and we were scared that they were going to call somebody about us because the dog was always barking. And we tried anything we could do to just stop the barking. And we had him for about 5 months before my family decided that we needed him to go to a better place. It wasn't about me wanting him so bad here. It was about what was best for my dog. And so my dad put an ad in the newspaper, and we found a really good home for him in the country in Michigan. And now he's running still acres of land every day, doing whatever he wants. So that really touched my heart to go and help out at the Animal Welfare League because I always loved animals. And a lot of people around here aren't aware of the animal abuse rates and the overcrowding, which is a huge problem in Chicago. I've been to the Animal Welfare League multiple times, and it's always crowded. There's never a time where there's like no animals. The challenge we face today is letting our community know more about the shelters, and not just, I know the Animal Welfare League, they go out to PetSmart a lot and bring their dogs for like adoption days, but there needs to be more done about it. So you can do a couple things. You can either go help out at the Animal Welfare League. There's a couple locations. One is in Chicago Ridge, right off of Southwest Highway, which is a location that I went to. Or you can donate to organizations like ASPCA, and what they do is they find new homes for animals. They raise money for animal shelters, and they also find better homes for their dogs. So I hope that my story touched your heart to go out and help out at shelters and stuff.
Okay. Is it on? Okay, go. Okay. Hi, class. So my name is Laurie Samha. I came from the overseas. Well, 2 years back, I couldn't even spell what I'm speaking now. It's just like people used to ask me, it's like, how are you? Then I'll be like, Ana bkhair, alhamdulillah. I was like, oh, you know. Okay, so sometimes, you know, you can just like look at the things from another way. Like, people used to laugh at me, and they were like, man, they used to laugh at me. And I used to laugh with them at the same time. You know why? Because I didn't even know what they were talking about. I was like, okay. So my journey started from Jordan. I was born and raised in Jordan. I was with my mom. We had a little bit poor life, like a ghetto life. Well, but I had a poor education, but it was all in Arabic because it was in Jordan. Well, so I continued my education there, and I didn't even know what the meaning of education when I continued my education until grade 10, okay? So after grade 10, my dad came from the overseas, like not from the overseas, from a country called Qatar. It's located just right next to Dubai. So he came and took my hand, and after he took my hand, I have saw what education is after I moved up to Qatar. And I continued my high school education there. And after I continued my high school there, I have saw how English is just like, when you like just learn it in English, it's just like, it's a way total different knowledge. Because a lot of people here, like mostly in all over the world, like people be like, everything is in English. Like mostly it just took over the world. So if you want to learn and continue learning, you gotta learn in English. Well, so my friends have recommended me to come here to the United States of America so I can enhance a better understanding of English and, you know, talk more with it. Well, so I have came here and I signed up for McGuire class after Mrs. Shah class, which was COM 101 class, and it was my first day I have spoke there. So it's like the first time I have spoken in front of people. It was in her class, and the first article I have written, it was in her class. Well, so I passed her class after I missed 4 days, and I was gonna fail, but she passed me. So Mr. McGuire gave me the chance to give a service learning, and I chose the ESL, English as a second language, because I felt like I'm related to it. Before I chose the bike thing, but whatever, I took the ESL because I saw that I can do something about it. Well, so I signed up for this ESL class, and I have entered the class, and I have saw Professor Michael. He was like, you know, I entered the class, I sat on the chair, then I found like a lot of people entering from outside, and they were all total different nationalities. Sometimes, like, after I went up the second time I came to that class, it's like all of them group up sometimes they're all just like, you know, random. So I have sat in the chair and I have looked at the students. And Professor Michael was giving like a simple stuff for them. It was like about like how's the weather outside? Be like, it's pretty cloudy, you know, like simple conversation. So I was like surprised. Why? Then I went and I asked mostly all of the students, and I have asked them, 75% of them, mostly what they told me is, like, we came to this class, we sacrificed our times because we can spend our times in working force and work to get more money, but instead of that, they came to this class each weekend to learn a better English, to conversation with other native speakers. Why is it? Why did they come? Why can't they make friends? Because mostly the native speakers here, after I came to America here, it's like they just don't want to get you in. It's just like, you know, they block you away because whenever they hear your language or something like that, they'd be like, your accent is just like, it makes you different or whatever than them. Well, so we are like in America. It's like a mixing bowl. We are the salad. You know, we're like the vegetables. We're all in a mixing bowl, which is the United States of America. So I have went to them and I have asked them more. It's like, what I notice is more like 50% of them, I'm not going to say all of them, they have a lot of knowledge and a lot of education, which is just like surprising. Like this can actually, why would you receive people from foreigners, from the immigrants? Why they are doing that? To make America greater. The technology here is becoming better and better each time because people who comes from outside, they have a lot of knowledge and they can evolve our education as well. So put yourself, for example, put yourself in their place. You went to an Arabic country and you start learning Arabic, okay? And you have, so all of them are talking Arabic and you have to learn Arabic and you don't know even how to, you know, talk it. So put yourself in their place. How would it be? So look, you got an opportunity here. This Moraine Valley Community College got an opportunity here to make you have, like, you know, give like a social responsibility to our society because you're responsible to give like something to society so you can receive. When you give, you receive. That's the logic I have learned from some rich man in Qatar. He just like came to me. He was like, yeah, I'm not kidding. He was like, just give us and we'll give you. That's how it goes in the society. So will you do your social responsibility? Will you try to give it time? And contact Dr. Michael to go each weekend, like Saturday or Sunday from 12 to 4, anything. Like, but you can just like contact the number, as I have some like, you know, some like cards. You can just go up to it whenever you're done with the class because I can't pass it to the class because the class is just like, you know, too wide and I'm just going to give a lot of attention. Well, so will you do that and participate? You can just participate in our society. Will you do it? Thank you.
All right. Growing up in the city of Chicago, I have been exposed to many social injustices. As a young boy, my father would take me to work to more so show me that, you know, your life is okay. Appreciate what you have. Kind of to look at other people and realize that not only do you have, you know, a lot of things going for you, but also you have the responsibility to understand that people are less fortunate than yourself. I remember going to work with him, and all throughout the streets, he was a district manager at a few health clinics in some of the city's poorer neighborhoods. And I remember it being a freezing cold winter morning, 0 degrees, looking out the window and seeing people on the streets, people, you know, in the alley, people on the curb. And to be exposed to that at such a young age is definitely will leave a mark on you for the rest of your life. The very first day at the animal shelter, you walk in, and it reminded me of the same thing. You walk in, and there's rows of animals going crazy, barking at you. But after a little bit of time, you're giving them treats and, you know, giving them attention, and they start to come around, and, you know, they feel a lot more. They feel a lot better seeing that people are caring about them and concerned for them. Being at the animal shelter, the workers there, you could tell, are very committed to what they do, and they also care about you being committed to what you do as a helper in this situation. Some of the workers there spend 12, 15 hours a day putting in their time and concern for these animals. the commitment that they have at the animal shelter is second to none. You could tell that their first priority in life is caring for these animals. A writer, I did some research on a animal shelter in Houston that was struggling, and one of the ladies there said that if we put in just a few years in our education system, educating younger kids about animals, we would have a nation of responsible pet people who cared for animals and were concerned about their well-being. Going forward, there's a couple different things that you could do to make a difference in this. Number one, you can go to your local animal shelter, make a donation. You could sign up for volunteer work. You go there an hour a week, an hour a month, doesn't matter. Outside of these animal shelters, this is what I'm going to challenge all of you to do. Outside of these animal shelters, there's a donation box where you could drop off toys, food, etc. I'm challenging all of you to go out and buy one bag of food to drop off at your local animal shelter. The one around here is located off of Southwest Highway in Chicago Ridge. And I'm going to close with a quote from Gandhi, which says, "The greatness of a nation is measured by the way its animals are treated. So let's make America great again." Thank you so much.
That's a great Gandhi quote. I love that one. Rock star. I didn't know it was today, so my effectiveness might not be there, but I hope it still manages to touch you in some way. Okay. So I'm sure you here looking at me now might not be able to guess where my origins are from or where even my future is headed. That and you possibly don't care. But I was born and partially raised in the ghetto, places like 26th Street, 13th Street, et cetera, et cetera. We moved around a lot, with good reason. My dad is a drug dealer, and the unfortunate part was that he was extremely good at it, to the point where he was able to lead other men for it, to the point where we had two houses, one completely devoted to his work and another devoted to us. But I had tend to be more jealous of the second house because it was much more luxurious than ours. And as for my mother, while we were with him, never loved accepting a dime for him. Not if it was dirty. But being the righteous and loving woman that she was, of course she's gotten beaten a lot. But as a kid, I bore witness to it all. I seen my father as the embodiment of darkness and chaos, and then I seen my mother as a loving, beautiful woman that she is. And don't be fooled. Even though all this chaos was sowing, there were still days where they still found love for each other. Days where it seemed like a family should be, and they were nice. But even though these days did exist, we did eventually leave him, and having witnessed all that I've seen, I grew to have in my eyes an unbiased and strong view and understanding of what is good, what is evil, what is light, and what is darkness, and how they can even coexist with each other. But with having seen all that, I pursued a life that kind of seemed like a superhero, that I kind of wanted to make the world into a better place. And to be honest, from what I hear and see from walking around, and not only in this school, but any other or any place, is that we all kind of wish for the same thing, that we're all kind of on the same boat, in that we just don't only wish to help and save ourselves, but help someone along with us until the end. And with respects to yours, I pursued mine in science at Loyola University. I had two majors, but my focuses were really on research and development for astrophysics, biomechanics, and genetics. Yeah, I shot for the stars a lot. I still do. But in pursuing my research and development, I eventually realized that if I did continue on and possibly make those great technological advances that we all hope to have, that my work would only help make things easier, not better. Just like how guns have made it easier to secure and protect, they also made it easier for people to claim themselves as conquerors, as kings, as life's dictators. Not with my work. So I stopped. I stopped carrying it so much for school. I kind of gave myself to a different kind of lifestyle. I stopped trying to passively help the world by introducing some kind of technology that would eventually be the new generation's normality. And instead, I wanted to actively help the people. I wanted to help the people by speaking to them, informing them, letting them know and see the things I see, just so they can add it to their own. I don't want to manipulate everybody to become robotic or anything like that. It's not my intent, no. But I digress. Sorry. And I say broadly things because I have seen and heard a lot of topics, a lot of major topics that cross my sight. And I've tried to study them and find out what it is in full. But while trying to inform people, I felt a great friction with everybody. They didn't seem to want to listen. And I'm sure you guys felt this actually before. It's those moments where you completely know the truth with all your being, but by the people's sheer capacity or their ignorance or even their will, they won't listen to you. And you so much that you want to inform them, to enlighten them, to the point where you physically want to shake it into them. But we can't do that. So I kind of gave up on that as well. I gave up trying to actively and passively help the people. And instead, I kind of stopped. And to be honest, I've never been happier. I finally stopped worrying about how to help the people in fully, that I stopped. Like, it seemed as if time kind of stopped for me. I got the chance to finally look around and see everything that's around me. And in that, I seen a beautiful interconnection with everything. I started being able to see things that I never took a glance at before because I was so focused on making something great. And to be honest, it was with that frustration that I realized that so long as the people like Albert Einstein could live on one side and people that are immoral, dangerous, insane, or dumb can live on the other, then that means in life, people will live and die with different morals, different values, different kind of lifestyle. That doesn't mean that we have to follow a singular route in growth. But all that I've learned, all that I've invented, there's no way in hell I would ever let it die. Not my spark, not my will. Not so long as I stand strong into it. But even if I'm a little short. So unsure what to do next, I did stop. I started to see all the beauty and everything. And while trying to figure that out, we've been... Oh, shoot. So in realizing... I'm sorry, I'm just going to use these notes. They're really good. And so that once chaotic and confusing world that I seen as a kid... it finally started to clear up. That big, confusing ball finally got small. And I was able to see it, and it was all beautiful. And then in questioning how to save this anything, I've learned that this planet is everything. That we've been trying to figure out in a loop. And I think that's so destructive and chaotic. We've been killing her faster with our pridefully gluttonous, greedy wrath and sloth, and we just have so many embodiments, and not only in our society but in all others. Like for right now, we have Trump as president, and then we have Obama as the one before him. Two people that you now know people will divide and follow respectively, and it's not just here. It's Russia, it's China, it's the UK, India, Africa, even in the Middle East. And then even within each own, they're working to do the same thing. They're trying to rid problems that we have in this world, like sexism, racism, domestic violence. And with all due respect to that, we've been spending too much time, too much effort. Although for good reasoning, there's still more. And it's not only been everywhere, but it's been at any point in time. For some reason, we just been neglecting the fact that historically, all these problems have always been there. We've always been in like this situation. You think because you're living in this present time that it is only here and now that we can fix it? No. And you know it to be true in the future too. It seems we haven't gotcha. The world is so what good would our problems be if the world is nothing but a barren wasteland? What good would it be when we finally live in a world that's like Mad Max or I Am Legend? This world, although gave rise to all our problems, also gave rise to all our beauties. Now, I'm not advocating for anyone to go into the forest and fight grizzly Adams to disarm them or something. No, my intent isn't for someone to lose their arms or legs. But if I had to convey you anything here now, then it is to use your arms and legs, to take that extra step, to reach out and help whenever or wherever you can. Because I feel like this planet, this world may need it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Sorry for all that.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I know you got to go. Thank you so much for being here. Very much appreciated. And I'm very appreciative of all our speakers in our audience today. So thank you.